released 3 email exchanges from the deceased convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein that appear to mention President Donald Trump. They say the emails came from Epstein's estate. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher has more from Washington.
The Epstein estate has released 23,000 documents. The Democrats on the Hill are highlighting at least 3 email exchanges. 2 of them in particular they think are particularly damning for Donald Trump. The first is an email exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who of course was his girlfriend. This is back in April 2011. He writes, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, name redacted, we'll come back to that, it's important. Spent hours at my house with him and he has never once been mentioned." Now, there's also an exchange between Michael Wolff, the author, and Jeffrey Epstein, and Epstein writes, "Trump knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop." Ghislaine Maxwell currently serving a sentence in a federal prison for sex trafficking. Now, the Democrats believe this is bad news for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has always denied any wrongdoing, a position supported in the last couple of hours by Caroline Leavitt, his press secretary. She says that this is an attempt to smear the president, that the victim, Virginia Giuffre, said that Donald Trump was not involved in anything untoward. And in fact, she backed that up in a statement, in a legal deposition she gave in 2016. But she also added that she had never personally seen him. So she may not be the person that actually is mentioned in that first email. Caroline Leavitt may have identified the wrong person. And certainly this has provoked a firestorm for Donald Trump, who campaigned on releasing all of the Epstein files. But many of his supporters are disappointed that that hasn't been followed through by either the Department of Justice or the FBI. And of course, that led to real disapproval among his base at the beginning of the summer. It actually started to die away, but this will simply reignite the furore. And in fact, one person on social media commenting, "This isn't a smoking gun for Trump, this is a bonfire." Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.
Bill Clinton features prominently, and there's little mention of Donald Trump. John Paul Tasker, CBC News, posted December 19, 2025, 8:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The U.S. Department of Justice released only a subset of the documents it has at its disposal in the Jeffrey Epstein case, and the most prominent person featured in this initial tranche is former U.S. President Bill Clinton. The vast majority of the file...
At least some of them, thousands and thousands of pages worth, salacious at times, indeed multiple times, others seemingly mundane. But as many who pushed for their release feared, much has been withheld. Nominally to protect the identities of Epstein's survivors or ongoing investigations, but much has also been left out for all to see, though almost all of it without context. This ad for a Florida strip club, a massage table, a brochure for a rape crisis center. Then there's this, on multiple pages labeled masseuses, fully 254 names blacked out. All of it now from the U.S. Justice Department and their investigative files on Epstein, the wealthy, convicted sex offender and accused sex trafficker who was found dead in a New York jail cell in 2019 awaiting trial. Speculation on what might be in the files centers on the powerful people who hung out with Epstein. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton is found multiple times, here in a hot tub, here with Epstein, here with a woman whose face was redacted, here with the late singer Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. Here's Epstein with Jackson, himself an accused sex abuser. Current President Donald Trump, a one-time friend of Epstein who signed off on releasing the files under pressure, shows up as a name in Epstein's contact book, as does Trump's former wife Ivana and daughter Ivanka, and the former Prince Andrew. A key question for all those now sifting through the files is whether any of Epstein's associates did any wrongdoing. Those who pushed for this release warned ahead of time.
If we get a large production on December 19th, and it does not contain a single name of any male who's accused of a sex crime or sex trafficking or rape or any of these things, then we know they haven't produced all the documents.
I feel nervous.
London, Ontario, Charlene Rochard is a one-time teen model and Epstein survivor. She stood among others last month on Capitol Hill pressing for these files.
Today marks a long-awaited moment for all of us. The way that we've been treated, the way that we were called a hoax by the president, and the files are going to show that we are not a hoax.
Rochard, like so many others, is now going through the files looking for names, flight records, anything to publicly identify further abusers, Erica.
And Paul, I take it the number of redactions has prompted a quick response.
Political intrigue in recent weeks. The Oversight Committee released more photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. The images have fueled significant political intrigue in recent weeks about who may have been associated with the late convicted sex offender. One of those photos is of Bill Gates with a woman whose face is obscured. The photos were released without additional context. The GOP-led committee obtained the images from Epstein's estate as part of its ongoing investigation.